Colonel Khan, how you doing, sir?
Hey, Joel, I'm doing well, thank you.
This is part 4 of my interview with Lieutenant Colonel Genghis Khan. We talked about his early career in the United States Marine Corps. In the last episode, we talked about him taking command of 1-6. Now, I would like to cover what were some of the successes and what were some of the things learned, some of the things we could have done better, Marine Corps wide, you and your unit.
Yeah, sure. There's a saying that success has many fathers, but failure is an orphan, right? You've probably heard that. And obviously, in the previous podcast, we talked about how wildly successful the Marines were, but we also had some failures, right? To understand the failures, you really have to understand how is a MEU designated to operate, right? Well, secure amphibious shipping. It needs that, right? And it essentially uses like reinforced size companies to conduct raids in extremist situations, right? And then bring it back to the amphibious shipping. The MEU is not really designed to operate for sustained periods ashore because it requires a massive footprint, right? And the footprint is for the aviation combat element, for the MSSG, for the BLT, and the MEU. So it just starts consuming its own resources, And as we saw at the MEU FOB, it was a 5 mile perimeter, took 400 people out of the BLT to secure it. And so the MEU needs to have a secure place to operate from ashore, and it needs secure lines of communication. So, for example, we had the aviation element in Condar, and a lot of our supplies were coming up from Condar to MEU's location in Terncote. You can look at the map, and then, so, here's Condar in the bottom, Terncote is up here. We're in a place called Kike, right? The Kike was actually the same distance to Condar as it was to Terncote. So we could have easily just been based out of Condar and operate out of Condar, then we wouldn't have to give up 400 Marines, right? So that was one issue. And the other issue is we're in Kike, and if you go directly across, so this is about 60 kilometers, and you go directly across, there's a place called Villanor Pass. And we left the LAR platoon over there to secure a checkpoint. It's called Checkpoint 231. And I always had issues with Checkpoint 231 because it didn't make sense. And the reason being is you're setting this one element out there by itself. And there's no way we could react to it, right? And you can't, and you really don't have any forces aside from the force recon platoon and the artillery battery that they had. And by the time they got down there, it'll be 4 or 5 hours, right, from the MEU's location. I can't go across compartment to reinforce them if something happened. And always this is a bone of contention, right? Checkpoint 231. And I would always had this discussion with the MEU that, hey, we need to bring these guys back. Maybe we can send John Nummett's people down there, the AMF, and all that to secure that. But for them, it looked good that they had an element in the big battle space that they own. We got this element out there by itself, and it was stupid, quite frankly, because the pass itself wasn't strategically critical, from the route from Condor. If we just put some AMF forces there for $5 a day per person, it's $150 a month, per AMF fighters. You could put 10 of those guys there, that'd be $1,500. And nobody's going to attack them because John Khan is feared, right? So the incident where, we lost Corporal Payne, to a meeting engagement between the LAR and these Taliban fighters in the middle of the night. And then we had, it was reported a couple of Marines are missing. So I'm at Kike. I launched my CAT team. They're hauling ass cross compartment to get over there because we got Marines missing, right? The MEU sends helicopters. Helicopters comes and land. And by the time we get all organized, we take off. It's about an hour and a half, 2 hours, right? After the first folks came in. And so we came and we surround it's a place called Tarwa, or the village, and we started looking for the Marines. Fortunately, we found them and start clearing the villages, and we ended up staying there for a couple of days to find out exactly what the hell happened. And and it really hurt me because I'd made a firm commitment, and maybe this is a weakness in me, to the families that I was going to bring their sons back home, and bring everybody back home.
In the hard, cruel world of war, the bodies of the dead and the wounded and captured Taliban and Al-Qaeda enemy measure the success of these Marines. And here are the numbers. At the cost of 1 Marine dead, Khan's crew has killed 83 of the enemy, and they have wrested control of this region long dominated by the Taliban. But to Colonel Khan, the loss of even that 1 Marine, 23-year-old Corporal Ron Payne, is almost too much to bear.
You did lose 1 Marine in this fight, but you've killed at least 83 of the enemy. I mean, that's pretty awesome odds.
Yeah, I don't know if I buy the odds. I tell you, having a son that's just going to Naval Academy in 2 weeks, losing a single Marine, I get emotional about it. I wish I was there. I would gladly lay my life down for him in a heartbeat. So, and we're going to kill some more Taliban, I'll tell you that. We'll find him, we'll fix him, and we'll finish him. That's all I got to say about that.
And it really bothered the shit out of me that we had this element out there, for no reason at all, quite frankly. Because we could have, and fine, if the 231 checkpoint needed to be secured, we could have put local militia out there, right? So nonetheless, this incident happened, and from that day, I decided that I was going to go on every mission, I just had to do that because I understood the environment. I, understand, I could feel things and talk to the locals and all that. So that was probably one of my biggest failures that, and I don't know how to crack that nut, because I still think about it. And unfortunately, it wasn't all my decision to be able to not have that element out there, right? Because the MEU wants to show that it's got so many maneuver elements in the battle space. It's trying to act like a brigade when it really isn't. It's really a headquarters with a, which really replicates the battalion, the BLT headquarters, right? And then it's got access to the ACE, which is down in Kandahar, and some logistics supplies, which I could have gotten straight from Kandahar myself. But that's one issue. And secondly, once the MEU left after 3.5 months, their FOB, they were replaced by an infantry battalion, our Army infantry battalion. Do you get my point?
Yes.
So they didn't, so an infantry battalion replaced entire MEU. So I just had an issue with all that stuff, with this whole, the setup that we had of how we're occupying the battle space. Now, in terms of the command issues, the MEU CO and I were just, oil and water per se, but we had mutual respect. I was, this loud, physical type, hard charger. And, he was a short 5'8", chubby guy. And we weren't alike.
Who was the MEU commander, sir?
I mean, you can think, I'm not going to take names. You guys can figure it out. It's not that hard. And we weren't alike in terms of leadership styles, right? He was more bookish. I was more physical. I was straightforward. And he was fairly complicated, right? And he always flashed his rank. He'd let everybody know that, hey, I'm a colonel. And many people called him Blue Falcon. Now, I don't know what Blue Falcon means. I mean, it's an enlisted term. So what does that mean, Blue Falcon?
Blue Falcon is in essence, is a buddy fucker. Somebody who screws somebody over.
That's what I thought. Yeah. So nonetheless, so when we went to Pakistan, I'll give you an example. The Pakistani military is fairly professional. They've got that British tradition underneath them, right? So they're fit and they're really hardcore. And they actually pulled me aside and asked me if he was really a Marine. And I said, yeah, he is. But he said, but he's out of shape. So I said, well, he's got a thyroid issue. I made up some BS. And so the Afghans called him the sweet or plump lamb, that type of stuff that you have to deal with. And to his credit, he really tried, and while we were there, he also lost a lot of weight. So if you see the initial pictures, he is plump, and then later on, like everybody, he's lost weight, right? But the way he worked his staff was very Machiavellian, right? The staff would do all this dirty work, and they'd come down and bully the BLT. And I was taught by guys like General Halleck and T.S. Jones and those type of guys where commanders talk to commanders. I don't need some staff officer coming into my COC and telling me what to do. So I just tell them, hey, go away, I'll talk to the MEU commander. And some of the stuff was just asinine, right? And then when I go to the MEU commander, he'd pretend, hey, I didn't know about that. Well, shit, that's your staff officer coming down and telling me what to do. What do you mean you don't know about it? Anyway, so, in terms of operations, he always let me do what I needed to do. So, hats off to him for that. The MEU officer was a good guy, infantry officer, hard charger. And, he'd get frustrated at times and come talk to me complaining about the MEU CO and his princely ways, But nonetheless, I mean, there's a culture of spies that he created within the MEU that created a corrosive command climate. But the MEU always wanted to be, hey, we're the MEU, we're in charge, when in reality, it was the BLT doing 90% of the missions along with force recon. I mean, that's reality, right? And the MEU Command Element is just sucking up resources, sitting up at that fob, and we had to give up people. And the staff would, always stir up shit, trying to show that they're running the show and all that, and undermining the good order and discipline of the BLT. And they were actually very successful at starting rumors and innuendos and taking, little incidents and inflaming them into a big deal, and meddling in the BLT's command relationships with my subordinate company commanders and stuff. Stuff like, if I didn't wear a flak jacket, this guy's crazy, that type of shit. Or why was I driving my own vehicle? Well, the reason I'm driving my own vehicle is, one, it just makes sense. It's compact, right? And two, I just gave you 400 Marines. I'm short of Marines. So I'd rather just drive my own vehicle. Plus, I know the terrain. I know where we're going and all that stuff, right? So, I mean, and I'm not sure. I never figured out if this was by accident or a failure to lead by the MEU CO and the MEU CO. They just allowed their staff to run rampant, and I'm not sure I really appreciated that. And I'll give you an example. So we hired all the Terps locally from Condor, right? And they would sleep with the squads, and then they would go out on missions with us. Well, the MEU got these contract Terps from the US, and they were from other ethnic groups across Afghanistan. And the locals didn't trust them, and these guys were always causing issues, right? Because the locals because there's 1,000 years of history behind these people, right? And so these guys are always causing problems. And then the MEU always wanted to self-promote itself, being the furthest MEU ever deployed, the longest MEU in combat, and all this, which I thought was horseshit because I really didn't care about these accolades, But we're always getting media coming in. So, I mean, we talked about Geraldo, and we've got some clips with him. And then we had this, which I didn't know at the time. We had this lady from the Australian SBS state line, right? And she was evidently with us. I had no idea, and I never really talked to her. So I'm clueless about this thing, because I've got, about over 1,000 people running around and over 120 some vehicles at any given time, vehicles breaking down and all that stuff. So I'm not really paying attention. But I think the Geraldo interviews sort of changed our relationship, because he's really sent out there to observe and report. And then all of a sudden he got fascinated by the BLT and myself because of my background. It's a story that Americans wanted to hear. This Pakistani American, the Afghans are very loyal to him. So the spotlight started turning on me.
Who is this man, the lieutenant colonel they call Genghis Khan? In some ways, his story is as encouraging as his victories. Born in Pakistan, Khan's family fled in the wake of the 1971 war with India, eventually emigrating to the United States. A high school athlete, he entered the Marine Corps after graduating from college in New England. Almost constantly at war since 9/11, his arrival on the Afghan front has been an incredible blessing. His family hails from a prominent tribe known to all these Afghan fighters. He speaks the language. He shares the roots and religion. He understands the culture and has generated pride and loyalty from the Afghans. Khan, in short, is the perfect American to lead the battle to rid his own ancient land of the oppressive Taliban leftovers and their al-Qaeda allies. Like his own Marines, these people adore him. In his own words, here is Lieutenant Colonel Genghis Khan.
And right now we're continuing to push the enemy towards the west. And as we continue pushing towards the west, he has to deal with terrain just like we do. And the mountains get higher, and we pin him towards the mountains, and then we're looking for a decisive engagement in this area for the enemy and the remnants of the enemy forces to find, fix, and finish them once and for all. So we can bring in our reconstruction effort here, the civil affairs teams and the provincial reconstruction teams that we have established with 22 MEU up in Terran Coat, which is really going to benefit the people. And ultimately, that's our end state, is giving the people a better opportunity, a better life.
You know, a lot of people in the United States kind of going through a period of reassessment, doubt, the prison scandal in Iraq, a lot of other things have caused some people who were behind the effort to now be equivocal about it. Do you have a message for the folks back home?
I'll tell you, this is my second time in Afghanistan, and the message is quite simple. Keep the faith. We're on the right track. These people are aspiring for the same things that we take for granted at times. That's life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And we have to give them those opportunities. And that's ultimately how we're going to defeat terrorism, in my view, is give them an opportunity and give their children an opportunity to prosper. And that's going to come through education. So folks back home, I'll tell you, the Marines couldn't have done better here. I couldn't be prouder of them as their commander. As a father, I look upon each and every one of them as my own. The job they've done for our nation, our country, and for the people of Afghanistan, the sacrifices they've made are going to be written in the history books.
And I think that might have soured the relationship between the BLT and the MEU. And then there's a couple other events, right? There was 4 Marines that were given to the MEU platoon, the QRF platoon from one of the companies. And there's evidently a fight between 4 Marines and one other Marine. I haven't seen these guys for several months. They've been given to the MEU. MEU's responsible for them. So that was one incident. And, obviously those Marines were disciplined. But the issue is when talking to find out what the hell happened, nobody supervised them. So you got a platoon out there by itself. The MEU commander didn't go out there to inspect them. The MEU commander never went out to inspect the artillery battery that was out there. And then you're extending these Marines for a week, 2 weeks. And it just so happened that lady from the Australian Dateline media show, tapes the battery commander trying to instructing the Marines, and they're tired, they're probably not paying attention, and he goes off and he pushes one, right? And that hits the news, right?
So that recording, and I'll probably put a portion of it up. That recording, the title makes it seem like that was you. But we'll
talk about that later. Yeah, when I get to it, I'll bring that up, right?
Okay.
So this whole thing has happened, right? I have no clue that this is going on because I really haven't seen the artillery battery. I've been gone, right? They belong to the MEU. So when we came back from that 16-day operation to the south that we talked about, Deschapan, and we got extended, we had to come back.
Yep.
I come back and the MEU XO told my OPSO that the MEU is conducting an investigation on me to cover, his words, to cover the MEU's rear, right? And I have no idea this investigation is going on, right? So they're going around snip, 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 talking to everybody. And evidently what the investigation was, one of the MEU's contract interpreters claimed that I had beat him up, right? I mean, absolute bullshit. And for a simple point, I was never alone. The entire 4 months, I was never alone by myself, So it's impossible that this could have happened. Nonetheless, he makes this allegation, and the MEU starts an investigation, and that's right. I mean, that's fine. They investigate, and they find out that the allegations got no merit, right? It was all BS. But in the process, the MEU CO or the MEU XO is doing stuff like waking up Marines in the middle of the night saying, "Hey, did you wash the battalion commander's clothes?" I mean, you got to be shitting me. First of all, I would never allow a Marine to do that. I mean, given my leadership style. Second of all, I didn't need to wash my clothes because I never changed my clothes. I wore the same freaking camis for 4 months. I don't wear skivvies. I mean, shit, we're an infantryman. I mean, the whole thing was more shit, right? But it's like, what the hell's going on? This type culture was going on. And, I have no clue why that Terp made this allegation. It may be because it was maybe an ethnic thing because he's from up north. I'm a Pashtun from down south. Or maybe when I was giving the local Terps their bonuses, he felt he should have gotten a bonus. I don't have a clue. I never talked to the guy. I could really give a shit. But later on, I found out that the same Terp had injured his ankle, and then I put him in a SIGINT vehicle, right? So he could drive around, so he wouldn't have to get out and stuff, right? And maybe that was the reason because he wanted to go back. And I didn't want him to go back, right? Maybe that was the reason. He's a malingerer. I have no idea, and nor do I care. So the MEU XO never took any sworn statements. Everything was off the record. And you know, a few of the Marines that you know, they're going to tell the truth, and they said that they saw me grabbing a couple of arms, pulling Marines towards me, and you know, so at the end, the MEU CO called me and said the investigation's concluded, the allegation was false, but they uncovered a couple other things with me grabbing a couple of Marines and verbal abuse because I used profanity, you know, chicken shit stuff. So I'm like, okay, sir, well, you know, so what else? You know, so he's like, well, I'm going to give you a non-punitive letter of caution, you know, and if you don't accept it, I'm going to hand over this investigation to NCIS and CID, and then you won't be able to go on the next mission, which is 2 days from now. And in my mind, all I'm thinking is, you got to be shitting me. You know, I just lost a Marine, and I'm not allowing my Marines to go up there, you know, to a new area by themselves. So I was like, give me that thing. So I just signed it and I left.
And this is the MEU commander.
This is the MEU commander. So he's very Machiavellian like that, right? So and I forgot about it, right? And then later on, you know, there was an incident when we got done and we got to come back to Kandahar. You know, there's a couple other incidents that happened, and one was the combat action ribbon, right? Now the rules, you know, are very specific. The guidelines: you have to receive and return fire. It's an individual personal award. It's not a unit award. So at a staff meeting, they announced that everybody at, you know, the MEU FOB is going to get the combat action ribbon, and I'm sitting there going, "You got to be shitting." You know, we've been fighting 100, 150 miles away. My Marines have suffered. I mean, they literally have suffered. You know. And they've been extended, and you know, each one has lost 20 to 30 pounds. I mean, they've done things never done before. Fought as high as 10,000 feet as a battalion, and you know, no showers, no hot chows, same uniforms, and all that stuff that we talked about. And I didn't address the issue in the staff meeting. Afterwards, I went to the MEU CO and I was like, I don't agree with it. You know, I said anyway. He said, well, it's my call. I said, I understand that it's your call, but it's also my call. When we get home, I'm going to bring it up. And so the car citation that they submitted to NAVCENT had 28 incidents that the MEU listed. 23 of them, the MEU wasn't even involved in it. There was the BLT and the Force Recon Platoon way out there in the mountains. 23 of them. The 5 incidents the remaining 5 incidents, there were 2 rockets that landed outside the MEU FOB perimeter. Okay, they weren't even in the perimeter. 2 rockets land outside. Then there's a MEU FOB OP that observed 2 local people that they assumed were Taliban. They exchanged gunfire. We don't know who started the gunfire. And later on, we find out those are John Khan's local security to guard the FOB. You know, so because of ID issues and no coordination with John Khan, we fire on his people. He's pissed. We don't, you know, I mean, it's just chaos. So we listed that as an example. The third example that they listed out of the 28 was two rockets landed outside, one detonated, and the other wasn't fused properly and didn't detonate. The 107 millimeter, right? So they listed that. The fourth incident that listed was a KC-130 that 2.5 miles out of final approach evidently receives fire. Yeah. And so they said it was a hostile environment. But that doesn't warrant a car for everybody on the FOB. What that warrants is probably an air medal. I don't know. I'm not an aviator, right? So they're starting to embellish all this shit. And then finally, there's a patrol 10 kilometers away from the MEU FOB that got into a firefight. The patrol deserves a combat action ribbon, but the MEU FOB doesn't. These guys are 10 kilometers away. And another guidance that this provided was that anybody that spends a night on the MEU FOB warrants a combat action ribbon. So seriously, we've got people coming up from Kandahar in helicopters at sunset, holding on to the skids, you know, just to sleep on the ramp, and then next morning to take back off, spend the night, and you know their names on there. Wow. So this was situational ethics, right? And which undermine our core values of honor, courage, and commitment. And I brought up in a different Marine Corps, you don't compromise your integrity. I mean, that combat action ribbon, yeah, for an infantryman is important, but I'm not going to, compromise my integrity and my honor. It ain't going to happen, you know. But the MEU staff is celebrating. Hey, now we rate, you know, the rocket lands outside. Hey, we rate the combat action ribbon. You know, I mean, come on, man. And Marines are watching this shit, right? And I'm not the only one that complained about it. Several other people did. You can read these articles and stuff, and it's all in there. You know, and in my view, the Marine Corps needs to go back and clean up this mess. Absolutely, you know, and it needs to be cleaned up and figure out what the hell's going on. So then last week of July, when we got down to Condor, Major General Olson comes down, gives the Marine that big speech, that quote you used, these
Yes.
Americans not like the ones before. And at breakfast, I'm sitting on a side table. He's eating with the squad of Marines and, telling them how great they are and all that stuff. And he's a motivating guy. I love him. And I'm sitting on a side table with the Deputy CG, Brigadier General, and we're eating breakfast. And all of a sudden they go, attention to orders. I'm like, okay, so I'm standing at attention. And they start reading off this Bronze Star citation. And they pin out a Bronze Star on the MEU commander. And I'm just sitting there going, you got to be shitting me. My Marines have not yet to be recognized, right? None of them got their combat awards. And this guy's getting a Bronze Star, that first one. I mean, what kind of example is that? So, after I sit down, I'm just like, I can't believe this. And the Deputy CG goes, hey, Con, you did a great job. You can write your own ticket. You tell me what you want to do, and I'll make sure it happens. Do you want to be the aide to the Chairman, Joint Chiefs of Staff? And I just looked up to him and I said, you know what? I'm going to retire, sir. I made the decision right there and then. I am done with this whole shit, right? And he literally spilled his coffee. He's like, what? He goes, you can do anything you want now. I said, I'm done, sir. I'm done. So we fly up to, we go up to Bagram and, have our meetings and everybody's patting us on the back. I'd even turn in my pistol, and I remember going to the jock at Bagram.
Wow.
And, I'm done. And this young sentry stops me. He goes, excuse me, sir, I show my ID. He's like, where's your personal weapon at? I go, I don't have that. He's like, sir, base order said, everybody, and I just looked at this young kid and I said, do you have any fucking idea where I've just come from? You're at Bagram, you got Pizza Hut, massage parlors, ice cream stands and all this shit. And it's one of the safest places in the world, frankly. And he's worried about me trying to put, so my sergeant major grabs me. He's like, hey, sir, I got it. Please go ahead. So I go inside. And Major General Olson welcomes us, very hospitable and all that stuff. And so we go down to Kabul, down at the embassy to meet, the General Barno and the ambassador and all that stuff. And have a big press day. And I was in no mood to talk to anybody because I'm just fed up with this bullshit. And the MEU CO asked me to, sit on the, on the table with him. And I was like, I'm good, thank you. And I went off to get some coffee with the sergeant major. I want to know part of it, but it's all BS, right? I mean, it means nothing. I got Marines to still take care of and wheel them and bring them home. And so we get done with that. We go to the airport, and the airport, the sun is setting. And I knew from my previous background that the airport doesn't operate at night. And I tell the MEU, hey guys, where's our aircraft at? Because this airport's shutting down. And sure shit, the airport's shutting down. And so they say, oh, we'll drive up to Bagram. So I said, I'm not driving anywhere. I don't have a weapon. And I'll just sleep here. I'll link up with you guys tomorrow. Well, in the meantime, General Olson finds out that we're kind of stuck at the Kabul airport. So he launches a Chinook. And from Kabul airport, you can kind of make out where Bagram is in the distance, so you can see this Chinook just hauling ass and comes on, picks us up, and takes us back to Bagram. And it's a transition point between daylight and sunset. So the pilot, it's not a good time to fly.
Right.
But nonetheless, the pilot did, right? So the pilot drops us at Bagram, but he doesn't park the helo at the VIP stand for 06s. And the MEU CO comes on and he starts screaming, tell that MF, I'm the colonel. And I just looked at him and I said, will you shut the F up? And I just walked off. I was just so freaking tired of these guys and their fucking bullshit. And I knew I was going to retire, so I really didn't care. And I went off, they went to the VIP quarters. I went and found myself a hooch. There's a rack in the hooch. I lay down, I'm asleep. Next morning, I wake up and there's like 4, 6 Marines standing around me, staring at me. And I kind of wake up and I'm like, good morning, gents. And they're like, sir, are you Colonel Khan? I go, I am. And they aren't all like this Lieutenant Colonel sleeping in a hooch with troops. I'm tired, man. I'm sleeping. And so I wake up, I say, hey, where's the head around here? Anybody got any coffee? And 2 Marines go running off to get me coffee. I go, clean myself up. I shoot the shit and say, hey, sir, tell us some stories. I tell a couple of stories and then we went off and did our thing, right? And and so we got back to Condor and I got an outstanding fitness report from the MEU CO. It was fantastic fitness report, top colonel, select for school, select for Colonel Command, nominated for a Silver Star. I'm thinking, hey, shit, whatever, I'm still retiring in my mind. And so we backload all the Marines. And I remember when they shut the C-17 door, I mean, I fucking teared down, man. I was just, and all I was thinking about was cocaine, As a father, you think about this stuff. You're like, man, Anyway, so we land in Kuwait, and because they have to offload clean shit and put it back on the ships and stuff, so we get put in Camp North by the Iraqi border or thereabouts in the general area, and it's a desolate camp. There's nothing but cloth tents. They did have AC, no flooring, sand, with normal cots and a chopper. That was it. And I kind of look around. I told the Marines, I say, here's the bottom line. Every morning, 0500 before the sun comes up, I'm going to PT you. After that, the day is yours. You can play cards, you can sleep, you can do whatever you want. I don't care. I told the staff and senior officers that, a chow, you'll supervise these Marines, and I want you to walk around with trays of ice cream and force-feed ice cream to them, because, we'd all lost weight. We're tiny. Because I want to take them back home, try to put weight back on them.
Right.
And so we got called down to RF John, the MEU's at headquarters at RF John, for a staff meeting. So I went down with the sergeant major. So I'm looking around for the MEU, and they're at the pool. So I come out there to the swimming pool, and they're all just kind of hanging out, and they're, and I just looked at it, and I was like, you got to be shitting me. And I think I must have, legend has it, I said if I had a grenade, I'd frag them all, right? And Sergeant Major kind of grabs me and is like, hey, come on.
So the
sir,
Marines are in the base, dirt floors, just
yeah, the guys that earned it, yeah. The Marines that should have been at the pool should have been the BLT Marines. They're the ones that suffered, But it's the MEU Command Element is sitting there. Now, maybe they don't have enough space, but at least send one of my companies down there, right? And you guys come up and stay in this comparatively shitty accommodations, right? And that really bothered the hell out of me, right? So we load ships and we're sailing back. Now comes the kicker. That Australian news reporter that was with us, she released a documentary, and in that documentary she claimed that there was abuse of prisoners by the MEU. Now, what she said was correct, but she didn't follow up on the other side of the story and didn't talk to the Marines about it. And if she had, the truth would have come out. And in the documentary, she talked about there's about 30 some Afghan detainees, prisoners that claimed that they were sexually abused. And the Afghans, given their culture, were right. But the rest of the story is when these Afghans came into the detainee facility run by the MEU, they were given a physical, and a medical officer would check them, for any injuries, any marks and things like that. And they'd have to take their clothes off. Well, in the Afghan culture, nudity is frowned upon. So they thought they were being sexually abused when they weren't. It was just a medical checkup. So that was the issue. But at the same time, Abu Ghraib was going on, prisoner abuse and all that. So this story sort of took off like wildfire. But she was very disingenuous. She didn't tell the whole story, And the Marine Corps overreacted to, rather than just coming out with the statement saying, hey, this is exactly what happened. It was part of a medical procedure that these prisoners went through. There was no sexual abuse. So that's the first part. The second part, what this lady did was, and you can play that for your viewers, was she released a video of a Marine, which everybody claims is me, and it's not, shoving a troop in a brief to a platoon. First of all, I didn't give platoons a brief, and
gonna walk around here like you don't give a fuck, and somebody's gonna get fucking killed. You understand me? I will fucking go spastic on every fucking single one of you. You better fucking wake up. You better get some fucking intensity. You better fucking realize what the fuck is going on. This is serious fucking business. We got 2 more fucking weeks here, and I'm not in the mood for somebody who doesn't give a fuck. You understand? Yeah. Do you fucking understand, kid? I swear to God. Do you understand? Yeah. Do you understand? Garcia, you better wake the fuck up. Do you understand? Yeah. McBride, do you fucking understand? Yeah. Let's clean our fucking weapons, get in the fucking vehicles, and ready to fucking go. Stand by.
She didn't frame the whole incident. The incident was we'd just been extended for 2 weeks. The Marines' morale was down, and it was actually the artillery battery that was chopped to the MEU. And I believe later on we do discuss this whole issue. And this lady really caused a lot of problems and ruined many lives because of that. But mainly those lives were ruined because the Marine Corps overreacted this whole thing, rather than just telling her, hey, you're wrong. This is not what happened. And, all the prisoners that the BLT had, we handled them with great care. And there's a clip that you can show your viewers that an independent reporter took. In that clip, which show that, we've got shade for the detainee. We've got water. The Geneva Conventions are posted on the fence, the barbed wire surrounding the detainee. And in the clip, you can also see that the detainee starts beating himself with the shoe, and one of the guards goes in and takes the shoe away from him. So we took good care of it because they were always in my sight. Wherever I was, the detainees were held, so I can always watch them. And our staff and civilian officers were well trained on how to handle detainees.
An independent filmmaker contracted by SBS Australia released a documentary that accused 22 MEU of human rights violations. The report sparked at least 2 different investigations that highlighted some concerns over prisoner treatment at FOB Ripley, but none of the abuse allegations had anything to do with BLT 16 or Lieutenant Colonel Khan. In these images, the only known images of a detainee under the control of BLT 16, you can see that the enclosure is covered, protecting the prisoner from the sun. You can also see the Geneva Convention rules for humane treatment posted on the concertina wire that surrounds him. Finally, you see that the prisoner is not restrained at all. In fact, he's beating himself with his own shoes. Even though Battalion Landing Team 16 was not the focus of the allegations in the film, and despite the fact that Khan was nominated for a Silver Star for his leadership in Afghanistan, Lieutenant Colonel Khan lost his command.
So I can assure you there was no abuse on behalf of the BLT, and as far as I know, on behalf of the MEU at the detainee handling facility. I didn't supervise it, I don't know, but I'm just telling you, based on investigation, what we found out. Those prisoners went through a medical evaluation. And unfortunately, this reporter, she was she wasn't a nice person per se. She just, spun the story to get her name out there and become famous. And in so doing, not only did she lie, but she didn't tell the full story, and she ruined a lot of lives. So I don't, that's why I don't like talking to reporters. And that's one of the reasons that I've never gave my story out to anybody, because I just don't trust people because they all have an agenda. And this lady definitely had an agenda, and a bad one per se.
So to clarify, that video is not you.
Yep.
Another thing is, being in the Marine Corps in the early 90s, I didn't see anything wrong with that.
Well, I mean, things have changed, right? Yeah.
I did not see anything wrong with
and the
that.
Marines didn't either. The Marines didn't either. But the problem is you got Abu Ghraib going on. You got this MEF CG by the name of Amos, who's and I just put up a video about him, Amos, who's just got a different style. He likes to crush Marines. He's an air winger. Didn't go to Marine Corps boot camp. Didn't go to Marine Corps TBS. Didn't go to OCS. So he's trying to prove himself also. And his call sign is Hog Tamer or something like that. I frankly would call him a weasel, but he reminded me of a weasel. And nonetheless, so the 2 MEF CGs, he loves freaking relieving people. So I get called to the MEU commander. He said the CG2 MEF has directed a command investigation into that incident. So I'm like, okay, sir, fine. So we do the investigation, and none of the Marines said that was assault. None of them. It was typically what a coach does
Exactly.
in football.
Exactly.
Boom, come on, man, wake up. And this is the infantry, right? And so then I get directed, hey, you got to relieve him. I said, I don't agree with this shit. Well, you want to relieve him? You're the new commander. You relieve him. So back and forth, back and forth. Anyway, this poor captain gets relieved, right? And it was just complete fucking bullshit, in my opinion. It was just throwing this young man under the bus who'd done so damn well, and he was a stud. And just to soothe the MEF CG's, tough guy image, we ruined this young captain and his family, right? And then he comes back and he says, the MEF CG has now directed me to do a command climate investigation to the BLT. I said, you don't have to direct it. The command climate sucks. We were out in the mountains for 4 months. We've all lost 20, 30 pounds. I can tell you it sucks, But anyway, so fine, whatever. You want to do it, do it. I don't really give a shit. And I think what happened was the MEF CG was targeting maybe the MEU Command, right? And he got nervous, so he needed to figure out something real quick of how to redirect this whole thing.
Wow.
So he basically said, hey, the battery incident happened because of command climate. Well, the reality is that battery didn't belong to me for 4 months. It worked for the MEU Command. I had nothing to do with it
That
whatsoever.
was one of the units you had to give up
Yeah, to guard his damn fob,
early
right?
on.
If you remember.
Correct.
So it wasn't mine, but he made it sound like, hey, that cons, command climate, it's all bullshit, right? Anyway, so the second investigation starts, and they assigned a brand new junior lieutenant colonel to me, aviator, to do the investigation. Now think about it, aviator doing investigation to a Marine infantry battalion. Anyway, he does the investigation, and he's trying to find something because rumor control started on the ship. Everybody's talking. They're coming telling me shit. I really don't care because I'm not making a statement to anybody. And I figured when I get back, I'll go talk to the MEF CG and sort this shit out. He interviews 70 out of, or he takes 70 statements out of 120 staff and CO officers. 70 statements, right? All of them were not under oath. They were all unfavorable. He didn't take a single favorable statement on my behalf. Didn't talk to a single NCO sergeant or below. And he did not, get a chance or did not refute or corroborate anything they said. So the Marine would say, hey, did you see Lieutenant Colonel Khan assault a Marine? Assault means touching a Marine and stuff. They go, yes, sir, I did, which was me grabbing, and which I admitted to, I did. And did you see any verbal abuse by Lieutenant Colonel Khan? Verbal abuse means using profanity. Yes, sir, I did. I use the F word, so those are the main things. So they created this command climate of a harsh command climate of physical and verbal abuse.
In a combat zone. In a combat zone.
In a combat, yeah. But
Yeah.
not mentioning that these idiots extended us for 3 weeks, 1 week,
Right.
and then another 2 weeks. That's what destroys morale. But the morale was good because the BLT did so well, but they purposely destroyed it to take the spotlight off the MEU. That's what happened. And later on, these 70 officers, nearly all of them contacted me afterwards and apologized, and not a big deal. Let's move on. That's what I told them. And, and I hold no grudges to anybody. I really don't. So they never asked any of the troops. They never asked any of the NCOs. They never asked for any favorable statements. And there was no follow-up when the Marine said, yeah, he yelled at me. Well, why did he yell at you? Did you forget your weapon? Were your Marines not ready to cross the LD? I mean, what was the reason? There was none of that stuff, right? It was all nonsense. And in fact, one time we had a Marine left his weapon behind in a village, and you're damn right I'm fucking pissed.
Absolutely.
I've got every right to, because I have to go back, shake down the entire village. I told the villagers, you got 15 minutes to go get me that weapon or I'm going to bulldoze this entire place down, and 10 minutes later, the weapon happened to be leaning against the wall.
Of course.
So I didn't want to play this investigation game. I refused to give a statement. I figured we'd get back to the U.S. and we'll get it sorted out. Well, we get back to the U.S. and what I didn't realize is the previous MEF CG the month before was General Osmond, right? General, and he was fantastic. He loved me. I was like one of the top lieutenants, lieutenant colonels in the MEF and all that stuff. Well, I had not realized that Amos had taken over. And I didn't really know Amos, right? Because all the MEU CO kept telling me is the MEF CG. So I figured, Osmond. Well, it turns out Amos had taken over. And Amos has a terrible reputation of just crushing Marines. I mean, he's relieved more Marine officers and destroyed more families than the Taliban and ISIS. I kid you not.
And I don't know if it's a coincidence. Amos is an aviator. The investigator was an aviator as well.
Yeah. I don't know things about but anyway. So I get called in about 2 weeks. We're back, and he says you don't leave me any choice. So I'm going to relieve you. I said fine. Great. I'm retiring. So
who said that?
The MEU CO, right? And because this is all worked out, he doesn't have the authority to do it. The MEF CG has to prove it, and the Commandant of the Marine Corps has got to prove it. But they've all aligned the ducks, and I can really give a shit. For me, it's a divorce type situation, right? I'm fed up. I'm leaving. I'm done. You guys do whatever you want to do. But they're so freaking vindictive. Now think about this. After all the shit that I went through, and the Marines went through, they're still vindictive, right? And why didn't he relieve me in Afghanistan during a combat operation? He didn't, because he used me, right? for his own success. And that's fine, no problem. I did it because of my Marine. I owed it to them, right? I wanted to lead them in combat. And if our command climate was bad, the BLT promoted over 540 Marines, right? 540 Marines we promoted. That's essentially half of the BLT. And we meritoriously promoted 30 Marines. That doesn't talk about a bad command climate. 7 Marines received combat promotions. One was staff and SEAL promotion that I was able to get, we gave 150 deserving Marines a Navy Achievement Medal. And I think you've got some pictures of that. And this, every time Marine did, I just keep them motivated, keep fired up, because we cared, right? Forget about the combat awards. That was later on, which we gave about over 100 combat awards, all the way from the Navy Cross, Silver Star, not counting mine. There was another lieutenant. There was a platoon commander who did fantastic. Bronze Star, and all these people earned these awards, man. I didn't give out any of this, slap my back, you write for me, I'll write for you type bullshit. Navy Commendation medals with these and Navy Achievement medals, So the command climate, in my opinion, was as good as any infantry battalions that had been in combat for 4 months. Combat sucks. I'll tell you that right now. I mean, there's no other way of saying it. But you pull out these young Marines out of combat, 2 weeks later, say, hey, how was the command climate? They're going to tell you it sucked, right? I mean, that's the way it is, because they haven't decompressed, And here's the other thing. If you believe in this mental health stuff and PTSD, what if these people had mental health issues and PTSD and they're being made to write these statements against me? Nobody thought of that, all this horse shit. Nobody thought about my mental health issues and PTSD. Not that I have any. I mean, I eat the shit up, right? I give other people PTSD and mental health issues, right? But but the bottom line is this, if you dig deep enough in any unit in the Marine Corps, and this, you will find issues, and including the MEU headquarters. The MEU headquarters had issues with people negligent firing weapons in the COC. MEU officer shoved a Marine, knocked him to the ground. I remember the MEU commander called all the officers and staff and COs, said we can't be doing this shit. Well, isn't that part of the command climate? Would he not be held accountable also? Well, it was a railroad job, and our command climate is influenced by many factors, to include obviously staff and CO officer leadership, which I'm responsible for, our op tempo, which was unbelievable, combat operations. We had 2 deployment extensions in combat, and there's rumors about a 3rd extension that we may go to Iraq after Afghanistan. Wow. So this is all affecting everybody because they got family back on all that stuff, right? And then if you remember, go back to the second podcast, we got 3 weeks to form the BLT. Normally you get 6 months, right? That adds to the friction and everything. And then there's this horse shit about this rumor control that they started, all the rumors and innuendos that the staff really started, and then repeated investigations on me. They just undermined my command position by doing that. But nonetheless, I was a strong enough officer that, I was like, okay, whatever, And let me tell you something, I would accept full responsibility for everything that battalion did or didn't do. But I will not accept responsibility for what happened to Artie Battery, or that one platoon that was left behind and the 4 Marines beat them up. It wasn't on my watch. That was the MEU commander's watch. And if you fail to get your chubby butt out there to inspect them every day or every other day or whatever the hell, your battle rhythm was, that's on you. It ain't on me. Because I'm 100 miles away fighting and keeping my damn Marines alive with the AMF thugs that I had and these ANA clowns that you gave me. I was doing my damn job. You didn't do your job. It was on you. But you're such a damn moral and physical coward that you just turned all that shit on me. And that's fine, I didn't care at that point.
Hey, sir,
so I do not.
By the end of this video, I think we should say the name.
No. Yeah, you can say it.
I'm gonna say it, and the reason I say that,
I don't want to have that discussion right now. Okay, I really don't, because that's not important to me. What I'd say, the result of the command climate investigation was really the MEU's command climate investigation, and they failed to do one on themselves. If I was a commander, all these incidents happened, I'd do one on myself. But he's a coward, right? He hid behind it. And at the end of the day, I took a unit that was facing immense challenges, right? And we made it work. And we went to some of the harshest places, highest places that battalions ever fought, and we were successful. It's very unfortunate I lost a Marine. I explained why that happened, because of a stupid plan that we came up with regarding that damn checkpoint, which we had no business doing in the first place. I could have arranged it for the local fighters to do it, and we'd still be safe, right? But they wanted to show that we had a Marine unit sitting out there all by themselves, alone and unafraid. Dumb tactical move, right? And what General Olson said, we made history, right? And, at the end of the day, I may have hurt some personal feelings. Well, so be it. Combat is tough. I brought their asses home alive. And I take great pride in that. And nobody on this planet can ever take that away from me. Nobody, right?
Right on.
So later on, so the second investigation, when I get relieved and, I've got my retirement papers in and all this shit, and they prefer charges on me. Typical Amos move. That's what he does. And so the charges were was assault and conduct unbecoming an officer. So my lawyers go down for the hearing to the JAG's office, and we say, okay, what are the specifications for this assault? I admitted, yeah, I grabbed Marines. They said, yeah, you grabbed Marines. So I said, yeah, I had. I agree with that. But I also remember Commandant Al Gray and many general officers in the Marine Corps slapping me in the back and saying, hey, good job, Genghis. So that's assault too. If what I did was assault in combat, them slapping me in the back's assault. So we need to bring them down here. I'll give you a list of names, and we'll put them under oath, and we'll ask if they did that. Nice. And they kind of look around, they go, he's got a point, and they kind of just said, hey, this one is not going to fly. What's the next one? Conduct unbecoming an officer. What's the specifications? Well, you use profanity. I did. Yeah, you fucking A, I did. Just like that. But they didn't use me, right? And I said, let me tell you something. I heard the MEU commander use profanity, especially on the radio. I've heard the MEF commander use profanity. So we're going to have to bring him down here. We're going to have to put him on under oath, and then we're going to have to ask them if they've ever sworn uniform. And if they say yes, then they ought to be charged. If they say no, then obviously we're going to charge them for perjury, right? Because I've got witnesses. And so they're like, yeah, you're right. So let's get rid of this shit, right? So they dropped this whole thing. So now they've relieved this one of the most successful BLT commanders, and they've got no legs to stand on, right? So initially it was trust and confidence. Then they went with this verbal and physical abuse. Now they have nothing. And I've got my retirement payments. So Amos is such a weasel. He's such a little weasel that he starts a third investigation and puts me on legal hold. Now I can't retire, right? And then gives me orders to Iraq. And I tell my CG, by now I'm back with the division. I tell my division CG, I said, listen, I'm not going to Iraq. I'm done fighting with this gun club. And division CG is like, hey, Genghis, we could probably get you another command. We can make it up for you. You can recover. I said, I don't want to recover, sir. I'm done. I'm going home. I'm finished with this. I'm not going to fight for this gun club anymore because I don't trust any of these guys. And let me tell you something. Okay, whatever's happened has happened. But you keep promoting that MEU CO, one day he's going to make a big mess. And you know what? Unfortunately, I wasn't wrong. But that MEU CO was a senior commander for the Kabul withdrawal and made that freaking mess.
And this is why
because let me finish. These people we allow these people to grow, and they keep making bigger messes. Because at the end of the day, they don't give a shit about Marines. They care about themselves first. Go ahead.
So for those who didn't catch that, the same MEU commander that we're talking about, as a colonel, was promoted, responsible for the withdrawal of Afghanistan.
But here's the bottom line. So these guys get promoted all the way up because, they're part of the club, right? They protect each other. So this happens. He retires as a 4-star general. He's got blood of 13 Marines and sailors, 40 wounded military service members, over 200 dead Afghans, 10 Afghan civilians that he killed in an erroneous drone strike. 7 of them were children. 7 of them were kids. What's going on here is, let's talk about Amos for a minute, okay? Mr. Tough Guy Amos, Hog Tamer, whatever his name is. Let me tell you about him. Hog Tamer lied about going to TBS. He put in his congressional record that he'd attended TBS in 1972. Somebody found out that he ejected out of an F4 in Hawaii in 1972. There's no way he could have gone to TBS. So they raised this issue. The Marine Corps comes back and say, well, he took the MCI course. That's how he graduated. Well, there's a big freaking difference between MCI and attending TBS, right? So that's one issue. Next is, if you remember those 3 scout snipers like yourself in Afghanistan in 2012, they went out on a mission and they took this one young captain with them, right? And the captain stayed at the hide site, monitoring comms for them. They went out, did the mission, killed several of the enemy, and these idiots, because it was stupid, peed on a dead, dead Taliban. And the stupid part really was they took a video and somebody released it. So it hits the media. Amos by now is the commandant. He goes high to the right, tells the 3-star, I want you to crush them. The 3-star, God bless him, I know phenomenal guy. When we were 1-2, he was in 2-2, and he says, no, you can't tell me that because there's a process that we have to go through. Amos figures out, oh shit, I screwed up. Has the assistant commandant call down and say, hey, I'm going to remove you as a CDA for this investigation, and we'll assign somebody else. Well, that is also a violation, right? So anyway, so these Marines get convicted, and you know, I don't have all the facts and stuff. They were convicted, and later on it comes out undue command influence. The convictions get thrown out. That young captain, who had nothing whatsoever to do with any of this shit, right? He's sitting back in the hide side, had no idea that they took the video or any of that shit happened, was also charged. He went up for a special court martial, right?
Wow.
They ruined this young man's life. Amos did, right? And later on, the charges, everything was dropped for the young captain, right? There's also the battalion commander who wasn't anywhere remotely close to it, was put on legal hold. The battalion XO, a major / lieutenant colonel, was put on legal hold. And, you know, again, allegedly, he's the commandant's son, the previous commandant, the predecessor of Amos. And the legal hold was removed so he could take command of a battalion. So this favoritism, nepotism shit goes on in the Marine Corps, right? If you ain't the chosen few, you know, you're screwed. If you're like Khan, you know, anyway, I don't want to go there. Amos failed in his basic leadership responsibility, right? As a Marine officer, because it was his duty, incumbent duty, to call me in and ask me, hey, stud, what happened? He never did. He never did. He was just throwing books at me, legal books, and trying to charge me with something. So this third investigation starts. I'm put on freaking legal hold, right? And I'm like, screw this shit. So
Third
I get hold of a
investigation?
lawyer. Yeah, this third one, because he's trying to pin something on me, right? They've investigated me. I mean, they've even, you know, run a flashlight up my butt. I mean, it's that bad. You freaking clowns. They're pathetic, honest to God. So they start the third investigation. I'm thinking, holy shit, man, this guy's really trying to ruin me and my family. So I get hold of this lawyer called Charlie Gitt, phenomenal individual, was a lawyer for the, there's a Marine A6 that hit a gondola in Italy. I mean, he's just phenomenal. Guy's got a good reputation. I get a hold of him. He's got the Southern drawl. He goes, Colonel, I was waiting for a phone call from you. I've been hearing a lot of rumors about you. Tell me what happened. I told my side of the story. He said, you willing to go on 60 Minutes? I said, absolutely. Yes, sir. He goes, all right, I'll be calling you back. And he hangs up, like, calls the Commandant's SJ at Headquarters Marine Corps and says, hey, I got this war hero wants to go on 60 Minutes and tell about the story about the combat action ribbon and some other things that went on in Afghanistan. When do you guys want to do this? And then Headquarters Marine Corps was like, holy shit, we don't want to be part of this. Because they know me. They know my reputation, right? And 8 hours later, my retirement papers came in. I packed my shit and I got out of camp with June, right? And he's so pathetic, these people are, you know, 20-some years of honorable service. Nobody shook my hand. My wife had to get some friends and family together, you know, as my retirement ceremony. I mean, this is how, you know, a low life these people are. And they claim this shit about Semper Fidelis. I say it's Semper Infidelis. These guys are freaking liars and cheats and, you know, and worms. I mean, honest to God, I hate to say this, but this is the senior leadership. Not all of them. A lot of them are very good. Don't get me wrong. But these guys get in the right places, like MEF CG, you know, Commandant of the Marine Corps, they can ruin the Marine Corps for decades. And that's exactly what happened. Or a 4-star general at Central Command, you know, is full of hubris and reading big books and stuff and doesn't go out and do things and trying to run the show from Tampa or Qatar. You know, that's why that shit happened. You know, and we could do a podcast on this if you want. I can talk about this all day long. You know, why did we go out of Kabul airport? You want the dumbest freaking decision you could have made. You know, it's an urban airport in a city and you can't manage the crowds. Bagram is at a distance, right? 40-some miles away, and you can manage the whole thing. And then he's given this horse shit, oh, we could have secured Bagram. Bullshit. The Afghan National Army would have secured the perimeter of Bagram, as they always have, right? And we would have shown them that we're standing behind them. But once we started running to Kabul airport, everybody said, screw this shit, Taliban's here, we're out of here, right? So that led to the accelerated downfall, right? And these guys are scumbags, man. I'm telling you. And I've kept quiet. I kept quiet for 20 freaking years. I just, you know, I just kept quiet because of the war on, and I didn't want to tell my side of the story, and I didn't want to tell you either, you know. But I'm kind of glad I did, because I think people need to know what the hell happened and need to know my side of the story and let them be the judge. You know, yeah, I'm a tough commander. You're goddamn right, I was a tough commander, you know. But I'll tell you what. My Marines came back alive, and he asked what he one of my Marines, you know, did I ever treat anybody unfairly? I don't remember, honest to God, giving maybe a handful of NJPs. I just didn't believe in this shit, right? But I held my staff and COs and officers accountable. You lead from the front, and someone said, well, sir, what if we get shot? Well, you know what? That may happen. And I'll be in front of you because I'm the lieutenant commander. I was there every single time, because that was my duty. So at the end of the day, I did my duty. I was Semper Fidelis. These guys went. And I retired. That's it. That's the whole story. What's our time?
We're at 52 minutes, sir. Hey,
We got time then, huh? Now you can ask all the questions you want.
Well, we can see your passion. The remarks I'm getting from your videos, from the videos I've done, the interviews, they've all been positive. Major Khan, hard but fair, good leader, outstanding. I mean, so we Marines would like to tell you Semper Fidelis. We Marines know the
I
truth.
love Marines, man. Yeah,
We Marines know, we appreciate. And like I said, one of my, I have books of awards. I've got all kinds of shit. But, one of my biggest, I've got a letter of commendation from Major Khan when he was the XO of Ward 2. So we appreciate it. And I'm glad you came out after so many years to put out the truth. And, by the end of this video, I'm going to say the name of that MEU commander because of that. Because it shows when these leaders, when these unchecked, years later, they're going to still keep fucking up. But now, because they've promoted, their mistakes is bigger and it affects more. So, we're warriors. So I know you did your thing and you don't look back, but we all know it was fucked up. Thank you for sharing the story, because nobody knew. Nobody knew.
Yeah, I kept quiet. I mean, that was a decent thing to do, right? And I'll tell you why, because I don't want to criticize when there's a war going on. And what really made me come out of the closet per se, and believe me, I'm straight. Okay. But what made me come out of the closet was I saw that all these battalion commanders are getting relieved over chicken shit stuff that wasn't their fault, because the Marine Corps is just looking to target somebody. When in reality, you want to leave an impression, relieve a commanding general.
Yes.
When those AVs sank, why the hell did that BLT get freaking AVs that couldn't float? Yeah, you can blame it on the BLT commander. Well, you didn't do maintenance checks and all that bullshit. You're sealed. Well, you know what? That guy's he's drinking out of a fire hose. He expects things to be Joe-toe, right? But they never do it that way. Just like when I had 1-6, I had 18 of 71 sergeants. I had 350 non-deployables. I had 400 brand new Marines. I had to train them up, so they take advantage of us. And that's not how the system is supposed to work. And then you got guys like Amos, who get by the IG. He was found guilty of undue and unlawful command influence on those snipers issue, right? He was found guilty. And unfortunately, the Secretary of Defense, allowed him to retire. And that's wrong. He should have been held accountable. If a battalion commander did undue command influence, they would relieve the guy in a heartbeat. So we've got this multi-tiered standard of accountability, right? And McKenzie, in all honesty, yeah, I mean, he's a decent guy. I got no hard feelings for him. He's just trying to save his own skin, But the difference between him and me is, I never try to save my own skin. If I want to save my own skin, I'd be sitting back in the COC on the radio telling Marines attack this, attack that, right? But I wanted to be there with the Marines because they're like my children. And I really, to this day, I fucking regret the fact that I wasn't there when that incident happened at checkpoint 231 with focal pain, because I knew damn well the outcome would have been different. Force of will, whatever the case may have been, it would have been different. And I mean, I made some comments to Geraldo. You can see it because I was pretty passionate about it, and I'm still pretty damn passionate about all this stuff, right? Because it means something to me. Being a Marine still means a lot to me, but being an honorable Marine, honor, courage, commitment means everything to me, and I'll gladly forego my career, for the benefit of my Marines. And that to me, it means nothing, right? And unfortunately, we don't have general officers that are willing to do that. They hide behind the stars. They're not willing to tell, we always talk about, we blame Biden for this, and, Biden was, no, Biden's got no clue what a C-17 is, or an A-10 is, or a C-130 is, right? That's the generals should tell him that. And if the generals give him options, and if you read that book, Melting point, or whatever the hell the book he wrote. In that book, he talks about that they gave 4 courses of actions to the president, right? Well, if you're going to give president bad course of action, which you're not supposed to do, and one of them was, hey, we're going to go out of Kabul, the president's going to take the easiest one, right? He doesn't know what the hell's going to happen. He's got maybe 45 minutes to 2 hours max time to pay attention to that, especially given, I respect elders, so I'm not going to say anything, but given President Biden's age and stuff. So you can't really blame Biden. Yeah, he's ultimately responsible and should be held responsible. But the good thing about this whole thing is, the IG found Amos guilty of unlawful command influence. And guess what this new Secretary of Defense is doing? He just announced 2 days ago that he's going to reopen the Afghanistan investigation and hold people accountable. And I'll tell you what, I hope that for the families of those 13 Marines and those Afghans and those dead 7 children and the 3 other people that killed them, that people are held accountable, for their actions or their lack of action. That has to happen. We got to cleanse ourselves from this stuff. And I've got this channel that I talk about some of this stuff in the military, and it's taken off because there's an appetite for it. People don't have a place to go, and a lot of them are civilians because they don't know this is going on because the military all the streets are under the rug, right? And it's wrong. That's not who we are, and as long as we keep doing that, we're going to keep undermining this thing, our Constitution, and we can't undermine our Constitution. That's the bottom line because we all sworn an oath to it. And these general officers are more worried about themselves, their stars, and their after post-retirement careers than doing the right thing. And not all of them are like that. Trust me, I know some fantastic general officers. I'd go to war with them any day, and I'm not going to name them because just like I won't name the bad ones either, except for Amos. Because him and I don't like the guy. He's a weasel. And I tell you what, I got more pleasure out of him shaking his hand and squeezing the shit out of him and seeing his face turn red. And all I'm thinking is, yeah, you may be a fighter pilot, but you ain't seen a Marine infantry, man, I got to believe, they'd invite you to these functions with the families and shit. And it's all bullshit, right?
Yeah, and you crush his
fuck
hands.
yeah, I would. Yeah, hell yeah. I'm not scared of him. I'd kick his ass in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. I wouldn't even, with one arm behind my back. Honest to God, I would.
Yes.
I'm still fit. I can still do 20 pull-ups, man. Being a Marine isn't your EAS date.
It's a way of life.
It isn't about that. Yeah, it's a way of life. I believe in this shit, and I still have. Absolutely. I always have, even after I got out of the Marine Corps and whatever the stuff I did. The Marine Corps core values meant everything to me, and they still do, and they should mean everything to you. Shit, man, we've devoted our lives and stuff, right? And why wouldn't they? So for me, at the end of the day, as long as my Marines were taken care of, I really didn't give a shit what happened to Genghis Khan, quite frankly, because Genghis Khan will resurrect himself. I'm more of a man than Amos and the other clown put together. They mean nothing to me. They're not worthy of me groveling, and they wanted me to come in there and grovel and say, get on my knees and say, oh, please, my career, my family. Fuck off, man. You're a nobody. You mean nothing to me. And that's exactly how the Afghans think. It's the same mindset, right? And let me tell you something. Neither Amos nor that other clown could have done what we did and what I did, because the Afghans would never follow them. They would never follow them, right? Because they can smell them. They're like dogs. They can smell fear, right? And those guys wouldn't last 3 days in the mountains with me. I'm telling you that. What the Marines of BLT 16 did in those mountains, these guys couldn't do it. And for them to judge me, so be it. I got no issue with it. Because, the Marines know the truth. That's all that can matter. Yeah, I'm a hard ass, and I'll continue to be a hard ass, and I'll continue to lead fairly, and I'll continue to lead being tough, and I'll lead from the front. Now, everything that I expect my Marines to do, I will do it first. Guaranteed, still at this age.
Absolutely.
All right,
sure.
What else we got?
And I think that's the most important thing. The Marines know the truth. We know the truth. We know the truth. So on a side note, on one of the times I was trying to interrupt you, where Amos said he did, when Amos said he did the MCI on this year, but the MCI didn't come out until years later.
Yeah, so there's rumors of that, right? So now I'm finding out that it may have come out or whatever, but there's no record of any of this stuff. Nonetheless, but we were always taught as Marine officers to always stay above reproach. Nobody should be able to question your integrity, your career, none of that shit. And I'll tell you what, the mistake he made was, all he'd say is, hey, I didn't go to TBS. And people would go, wow, holy shit, he must be special, right? And there's a lot of people that didn't go to TBS. Major James Capers that we're trying to get the Medal of Honor for didn't go to TBS, right? Because he got a battlefield commission in Vietnam, came back in the Force Reconnaissance community, didn't have time or whatever. but just tell the truth.
Yep.
It's worse to lie about it. It's worse to lie
Exactly.
about the combat action ribbon when you didn't earn it.
Exactly.
And Marines know that shit, and that's why if you read those articles that you have, they talk about the issue of the controversy about the combat action ribbon for the MEU. And now think about it, they all got away with it. And I'll tell you this much: whoever's wearing it and they didn't earn it, they should take it off at a minimum. At a minimum, don't wear it if you didn't earn it, because it's that simple. Because Marines sacrifice themselves. There's thousands of Marines out there, hundreds of miles away, that sacrifice. And if you didn't earn it, I ask that you take it off, and then we'll be at peace with each other. Yeah, I mean that's just fair, right?
I don't know how somebody can wear a ribbon, a medal.
They do it, man.
That they did. That's
It's
crazy.
the Marine Corps change. They
Absolutely.
do it all the time because they want that stack of ribbons and all this bullshit. I don't even know what my ribbons are. I honest to God, I don't. I'm probably filming some shit can. Because they're
Hey.
meaningless, right? What means more is those comments that the Marines leave behind.
Oh, without a doubt. You need
Yeah.
to jump on and check those out. Hey, sir, one of
Yeah.
the things I appreciate about you, and you just did it here, Colonel Khan and I, we've had some conversations offline. We don't always agree on everything.
Yeah.
But something he always does, he always, and he had me doing it now, always
Yeah,
keep
good.
a U.S. Constitution,
Yeah, absolutely.
and we've had conversations.
Yeah.
And he said, hey, he'll bring up his constitution, and he will have me like, oh, right. Like, hey, there may be a group of Americans that I don't agree with. And he will say, hey, but they're Americans and they're backed up by the
Yeah.
Constitution. So
Yeah.
it's quite interesting that a leader does that, right? Because many folks, their opinions or what have you. Nonetheless, thank you so much, sir. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
My pleasure.
Great
And,
conversation. What I would
Yeah,
like to
I'm glad I did it with you because I mean, first of all, there's past history amongst us, and I think we understand each other. So I think that means a lot when somebody is doing an interview, and I'm glad this is all out there, and it's for the record now, right? And people can judge ultimately who was right, who was wrong. And all I can say is, BLT 16 did its duty. As part of that battalion, I did my duty just like the Marines did. No greater, no less. So, and you can't really ask anything more from a Marine, right? And it's that simple. Just do your duty. And the rest doesn't matter. I didn't give a shit about my career, honest to God. I really didn't. And if I did, I would have probably groveled, but I didn't. I could care less. I would have walked away with a silver star, great fitness report if I kept my mouth shut. But that's not me. It means nothing to me. And everything I've told you, I've got backed up with documentation. Original documents, right? I've got all the shit, all the timelines. I sent, you saw some of the maps, and everything is there. The investigations, I've got everything is documented. And if there's a turd out there that wants to challenge me, then, that's the way I would do it.
Don't miss part 5 with Colonel Khan. This is Joe Rodriguez, the man coach. Live hard, stay strong.